You're listening to The Extraction, conversations on the systems and strategies behind dental practice growth with Colin Ambler and Kyle Bergman. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Extraction podcast. Your host, Kyle Bergman, talking in the third person, and Colin Ambler. We have a special guest today. We're joined by Dr. Jim Arnold, multi-practice owner and the founder of Foundation Dental Alliance, where he helps dentists just like you grow with clarity and protect their autonomy. You may have read his recent piece on why culture is the true multiplier in a practice and why most incentive programs miss the mark. Dr. Jim understands how to turn daily behaviors into measurable results, which is exactly what we're all about at TeamCare, and it's exactly what we're going to talk about over the next 30 minutes. Dr. Jim, welcome to the Extraction podcast. We are honored to have you with us.
Hey, Kyle, thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, I know one thing, just right off the bat, you were recently in Dubai. Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to Dubai?
Yeah, man, it's a little crazy. I mean, I think it's on a lot of people's bucket lists. It had been on mine for about a decade, but just never made the time to get over there. But I actually took a group of dentists there for some world-class education, luxury travel, kind of combining the best of both worlds with a Dubai luxury dental retreat. It was epic. I mean, I think in the history of dentistry, this is probably the highest ed event that there has ever been. And man, we had a blast. Our attendees learned a lot, and we built some great relationships and a lot of lasting memories.
That's amazing. And we'll talk a little bit more about the luxury dental retreats that you lead. But I want to take a step back, maybe a big step back. One of the questions that we love to ask guests on the pod is a little bit about who you are, where you come from, doing a little bit of research. You have a really impressive journey. Can you give us the quick arc from like overwhelmed grad to multi-practice owner to Foundation Dental Alliance, and what inflection points really shaped the playbook that you practice and preach?
Oh man, that's a lot. You have a couple of hours to go through this, man. That's a big timeline we're going to cover. But briefly, what I'd say is just like most dental students, you go through, you don't learn anything about business or communication or leadership, and then you come out with all this debt, and you're just thrown into a situation where you're expected to magically develop all these skills. I mean, obviously, some people have more of those things than others, but to a certain extent, most people are just doing a lot of trial and error. I got out in that kind of a situation, really didn't have a clear vision as to what I wanted to do. But when it came time to buy my first practice, I was like, man, I better figure this stuff out real fast, because the first day I walked in the door, guys, I had $1 million worth of debt and was, pretty scared. I mean, that's like a big hurdle and hurdle to overcome, mountain to climb, whatever you want to call it. And, good news is I worked hard. My wife helped me. We were really serious about it, not just providing amazing dentistry and service, but really to do it in a way that made the business profitable. I mean, because I think that all dentists, it's incumbent upon us to have profitable businesses, because if we don't have profitable businesses, not only does our life suck, and not only is it hard to pay the bills, but let's be honest, you can't hire great A players. You can't do a lot of CE. You can't buy the technology. You can't do the things that help us provide great care for our patients. So, dentists out there who think that, they feel guilty because they're making money or because they're looking at it as a business, well, they're really dropping the ball. And in the long run, I think that they are, compromising care for their patients. So we did a lot of stuff. We got a lot of CE. We learned business systems. I had a bunch of mentors. And so early on, we were super successful, kind of designed the practice of our dreams, expanded to multiple locations, made sure that we had teams that were, not only talented, but had the right personalities and that we could trust and delegate to. And man, we just took off from there. It's been a wild ride, but a great ride.
It reminds me of one of my books that I had to read in business school. It's called The Goal. I can't even pronounce the author's name. I'll have to come back to our listeners on that one.
Yeah, I'd love to
But
know about that.
the whole premise, it was based in this production plant, and the whole staff was getting frustrated because things weren't going well. And the plant manager came in as this whole big analogy that relates to business and metaphor, and it was about identifying the buyer. And the goal is to make money. And that sounds crude and it sounds like a little bit like harsh, especially in healthcare. I don't think dentists like love to hear that concept, but it's like without making money, nothing can happen. Just like you said, you can't hire the people, you can't buy the best equipment, you can't pay the bills. It's like you can't attract the people, and it just turns into this like frustration. Kyle and I both come from sports backgrounds and we played college sports together. And we know that it's like when you're on a losing team, everyone's upset, everyone's pointing the finger, and it's so frustrating. And when you're on a winning team, it's like this
Yeah.
amazing culture that's like fun and it's exciting. And so I think that like what you just said really struck me, that it's like, yeah, we have to make money. It's like, and it's not a bad thing. And it's like I think dentists, we see this as a recurring theme everywhere, that dentists by nature, by training, by experience,
Hmm.
they aren't business minded people. And it's like really helpful when they have
Right.
people like yourself help figure that out. And I'm sure you learned some hard lessons when you came out of school with $1 million of debt and you had to figure it out the hard way. And so
Man.
I'm actually curious, what are some of the first couple lessons that you go back to, and what are the most painful experiences that you have? I think there's a lot of dentists out there that are coming out with a lot of debt and trying to figure this out. So what's your first couple words of wisdom for those
Yeah.
people?
Yeah. Well, Colin, first of all, I'll go back and kind of echo your sentiment that when you are an athlete, when you're involved with sports and a team, you work your ass off to win. And I also was a college athlete, track and cross country. And when you come out of that with that sort of mentality, it carries over into everything else you do, whether as an entrepreneur, as a clinician, as a father, whatever we do, we want to do it
Hmm.
well and we always want to win. We don't want to be just another anything. You don't want to have just another company. You want to have the freaking industry leading company, that is
Absolutely.
transforming practices and teams and, making sure patients get the care that they want. And dude, I was the same way coming out of school. I didn't exactly know the path right away. And you talk about pain, and having $1 million worth of debt. Well, it was, yeah, I mean, it was scary. We prepared really well. I was an associate for 3 years, kind of learned a lot not to do kind of thing. And then, learned how to run a business during that interim. But we really predicated everything we did on making sure that it was really team driven, because I recognized early on that I couldn't do everything. While it's in our nature, I think, as achievers and people who are competitive to micromanage things, that's not where it's at. Not only are you never going to do as good a job as your team can do if you incentivize them properly and compensate them fairly,
Mm-mm.
but it's impossible to scale. I mean, dentists become the bottleneck when they think they have to control everything. And so establishing systems, establishing, incentive programs like what you guys offer are critically important so that teams can take on some sense of ownership and everybody is on the same page with regard to scaling and making sure that they do their jobs effectively. So, man, I wish that you guys had been around 25 years ago when I started doing this thing, man. The incentive programs I had were a pain in the ass. They were hard to track. They weren't really motivating the team like I had hoped they would. I mean, we were effective and productive, and I had great people, and it was awesome. But this would have been the freaking cherry on top. And honestly, I think really we would have grown 20 to 30% just with this. When you got motivated team members and you put a nice carrot out in front of them, they're going to work twice as hard or twice as smart.
Amen to that. And I think when I was reading that book I referenced called The Goal, I was just getting introduced to the business of dentistry. It was about 10 years ago almost at this point. And my wife and I were building our practice from scratch, which is now doing about $7 million a year, 14 chairs. And, we've had to build these systems. That was the birth of TeamCare. But the same focus came to me. I was like, the dentist is the bottleneck. I yelled it out loud almost when I read the book. The dentist is the bottleneck. And it's
Yeah,
like everything in the practice, it's like you surround, I mean, how do you solve a bottleneck? You make sure that everyone relieves the bottleneck as much as possible. And the more that you slam stuff into the bottleneck, the more that throughput goes down. And so I think that
that's right.
systematizing the culture and I came from a very practical, similar place as an operator. It's like you want to systemize stuff and you inevitably like make a spreadsheet and you try to like put it there and it falls apart and it doesn't keep up and so that's really where team care came from the same place that a lot of operators are in. We took a lot of these common themes, common practices in dental offices, We made a centralized workflow of it that was directly automated from the PMS. You didn't have to type the patient's name, type their doctor, type their double entry, these things. It just came straight to the staff. And that if they did that thing, they could get a bonus same day, instantly. And that was the vision. So I love to hear people like you that came from the same place and talk about it with such excitement
Mm-hmm.
that say, listen, I saw this
Well,
too.
some of the things that you mentioned, Colin, I think are really important. Just simplicity. If you make people jump through too many hoops to make a system work, chances are they're either not going to do it, they're just going to be too busy to do it, or they're not going to understand it. And when you can simplify your systems and get buy-in from everybody, I mean, that's where it's at. You eliminate those bottlenecks. And, as a dentist owner, I started with one practice and I added a second and then I did a third. And, I mean, the bigger you get, the more you expand, the more important it is that you have this great team that's incentivized and, takes control of the systems that need to run smoothly. I learned it took a while. It took a while as a control freak. But when I learned to delegate, not just delegate, but delegate and trust and know that the team felt like they were well taken care of, that's when everything changed. And that's what made scaling a lot easier. To automate that, to systematize it in the way that you guys have is just something that is brilliant. And I look forward to really helping a lot of my docs that I work with implement the same system, because that's something that doesn't just help you grow and make more money, but it also allows you or puts you in a position to provide better care. I mean, I said it's incumbent upon us to be successful business owners, but it's also incumbent upon us to help patients make good decisions. And if we don't have those regular touch points, if we aren't following up in the best ways possible, if we aren't keeping them on a schedule in terms of reactivation or pre-appointment, all that stuff. I mean, without those things, and patients are not likely to make good decisions, and we're not doing our jobs.
Totally.
Yeah,
You said delegate and trust. Do you feel like with the people you work with, is there an emotional leap that needs to happen there? It's not like we're a software, we can make it easy, but
Yeah.
I feel like there might be some people that there's like crossing the chasm there, with doing that. Go a little deeper on that for me, because I'm sure you have a lot of
Yeah.
experience with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that I used to delegate and trust at the beginning. I mean, I think that when I wasn't a great leader as a young dentist, I wasn't a great leader. But as I learned how to lead more, I realized that it goes beyond just hiring well. I mean, you got to hire the right people, but you also have to give them the tools they need to succeed and put them in positions where they can succeed. And when you do that, and when you start to turn over some of those responsibilities to them instead of like micromanaging everything, all of a sudden they take ownership and they take pride, and you start to see results that are far superior to what they were before. And when you start to see that, that's when the trust comes in. You're not just dumping tasks on somebody that you don't want to do. You're delegating to them so that they have a sense of ownership. So that the job gets done well and they sense whether or not you trust them. Because if you don't trust them, they know it and they're not going to be super motivated. But if they feel that sense that, hey, you know what? Doc trusts me and knows I'm going to do a good job. But then I think you take a lot more pride and you take it more seriously. And those aren't things that come easily. I mean, I think for me, some of it came through trial and error and experience. And some of it, frankly, came through mentorship. I think that's another thing that a lot of dentists don't do early enough. Find mentors. I think that no matter what you do in life, if you want to do it really well, find people who are doing what you want to do, are at a level that you want to aspire to, and then just like, man, take advantage of that. And that's I think the best way to fast track a success and condense time.
and Dr. Jim, seeking mentorship almost sounds a little bit like what the inspiration or the motivation was for the Foundation Dental Mastermind group that you lead is. I believe you're meeting with owners weekly. You have 20 plus experts, and it's an opportunity for folks to really find a mentor. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, we've all been to conferences and courses, and you learn a lot. You come home with notebooks full of notes and all this kind of stuff. Then you get thrown into the craziness of the day. I mean, anybody who's spent time in a dental office knows that there's just a lot going on, a lot of complex systems. And so you come home with all these ideas and all these great plans. And as a general rule, you're lucky if 20% of them get implemented. And I've been guilty of that before too. But I've always found that in a small group where you're meeting on a regular basis and there's accountability involved, you're a lot more likely to follow through on the promises that you make to yourself and your team and your practice. So, with the Foundation Dental Mastermind, as you mentioned, we've got 20 or 25 niche experts. I mean, just rock stars in the industry who've been there, done that, have all the answers, have all the shortcuts. I'm pretty well versed in all of it. But I like as a leader to bring in those niche experts so that they can really provide that massive value in a conversational format. We meet every week, at least once, sometimes twice a week if necessary, depending on the subject matter. And anybody who can't make those, I mean, of course, it's all housed on a private platform where they can go back and get what they needed. But I mean, this is for ambitious dentists. Not everybody falls into the category. Not everybody would be a great fit, but anybody who's out there really working hard to learn and grow and wants to get information that they can take to the bank, kind of on all the main pillars of dentistry, this is definitely the way to go. And this is a mastermind different from any others out there. Where in fact, we're going to meet here in my home 2 or 3 times in 2026, just to have that real in-person experience where in the flesh we can talk about a lot of different things and 24/7 access, basically, kind of like what we had in Dubai. And our first people in are also going to get a luxury dental retreat as part of their tuition, which is pretty damn exciting. So our 12 founding members are all getting tuition at 50% reduction. They get a voice over the next couple of months on how we put together the 2026 curriculum. I mean, it's pretty well set, but if somebody has some pet project or something they really want to get into, those early adopters are the ones who are going to have, a little more say so. So super excited. It's gonna be
Awesome.
awesome.
That's amazing. I think that I can totally relate to this. We had a great mentor early on that gave us a pathway. And I think everything has a service, but I think there's like a huge underestimated value that, like, if you get into the money making opportunity in dentistry is so enormous. And that if you call it whatever the price is, if you get behind a good mentor and they give you a good pathway, it's going to pay for itself 100 times over. It really is
Yeah.
amazing what can be done. But I can certainly relate to coming back from a dental convention with a notebook full of ideas and almost having some paralysis on it. And so
Yeah.
sometimes Kyle and I like to talk about high leverage tasks. And it's like, what can I do that's going to give me the most yield? What's going to give me the biggest bang for my buck? And so for the dentists that you work with, talk about some of these maybe high level common themes that can give them the most bang for the buck getting into practice management.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that everybody who is a business owner of any kind, but specifically with dentists, I think that developing your leadership skills and some of the communication skills and some of the soft skills that I think a lot of times are overlooked, I think those are the things that provide the most leverage. Because without those things, we got a lot of docs out there with incredible clinical skills. They've gone through Pankey, Dawson, Coy, Spear, done all this stuff. And then they come back and they don't have those soft skills they need to lead a team, to communicate effectively with patients, to present cases effectively so the patients say yes. And guess what? They're not very busy. And it's a
Hmm.
real shame. So I think in terms of, real leverage, I think that working on those soft skills that you don't really learn in dental school to make sure that that supports all of those clinical skills that are obviously even more important so that they can do more of the work that they love. Yeah, that's a big one. And then, of course, from a business standpoint, just really understanding your numbers. I mean, because if you don't understand your numbers, if you're not tracking your KPIs, well, you basically have a hobby. You don't have a business. And as you alluded to, I mean, there's an opportunity to make a lot of money in dentistry, and it's a high stress profession. I mean, anybody who lives with a dentist, has been a dentist, or has spent significant time with a dentist knows that man, there's a lot going on that, most people don't understand. And so the investment in our education, the investment in buying a practice or building a practice, the investment of just our blood, sweat, and tears in all that it takes to be successful, we really need to be remunerated properly, and ignore those business parameters would be a huge mistake on so many levels. So, I mean, leverage, there's a lot of levers, but that mentorship piece, learning to improve your leadership and communication, those are probably the biggest ones. And then just always be learning and growing on a personal level too.
Yeah.
That's
Amazing. Yeah, I can't even hold back. I think one of the things when I'm working with the practice and introducing some of the team care is something that you just said is quantifying your treatment plan world. I would have said
Yeah.
case acceptance, but part of it's presenting. We put a lot of numbers and we make the workflow super easy so that you can visualize what's actually happening with the numbers. And I think that when we go through this treatment plan case acceptance, it's something that's often used by the front desk that are doing the clicking of the buttons. But one of the things that we see often team care used with a mentor relationship is when a patient declines a treatment plan or says not to schedule, the front desk staff within team care is required to write the reason why. What did the patient say? Did they say, let me ask my wife? And we see it with our mentors that are helping the associates is that they have this shared platform to see all of the treatment plans, all of the at
Mm.
bats. And, a mentor with a trained eye like yourself, I'm sure if you started to read the reasons of 10 or 15 of these treatment plans, you're going to understand how to translate them. And it's like the patient saying this, and what that
Yeah.
means is really that. And it's like, I think I can help emphasize your sense of urgency or you're not relating or some of these things. And so I love that about this, and
Yes.
it's my advice, just like you, is let's look at some data. Let's see what
Yeah.
people are saying about you, and I think that feedback's super valuable.
It's huge, Colin. And what you guys have created not only helps track it, but it really helps you see trends and what really needs to improve. So it's not only for tracking, it's not only for communicating with patients and following up on a more timely manner that's easier to track, but it's also about training. Again, if you can see where maybe the ball was dropped or where things could have been improved, I
Totally.
mean, you guys have the opportunity to move the needle in so many different ways. And that's why, in terms of leverage, this kind of software, this kind of program that is so team run is just, I mean, it's a home run. There's no reason for any practice not to have this. And I can't wait because I'm in the market right now. I'm going to buy a few practices over the next year. And I can't wait to have this from day one so that we're hitting on all cylinders. Good stuff.
Dr. Jim, I kind of want to go back to this mastermind because I love it. And this happens in a couple other industries, which we kind of rub shoulders with. So for people who are on the outside looking in, wow, a mastermind group with a lot of really successful dentists who are hungry to get better, kind of have a growth mindset. Are there certain trends or truths that you're seeing in the most successful dentists that are attending these with you?
What's interesting is the luxury dental retreats that we've had thus far and the people expressing interest in the mastermind. It's really the guys and women who are already really successful. That's the trend. I mean, people who are growth oriented and successful are always looking for opportunities to raise the bar even higher. And that all comes down to who you spend time with and who you get your information from and what room you want to be in. And so I think that everybody who is growth oriented is a lot of them are already very successful, want to be more so. And some of them are just young dentists who see what's possible out there. They see what they want to do. And so they're seeking that mentorship from a group like this, because it's not one guru. It's not just me saying, hey, this is what I've learned over 29 years. It's a whole community of educators. And then, of course, dentists who are growth oriented and like minded. And so I think that there's a lot of value in being a dentist who is open to collaboration, is open to sharing the things that have worked for them, the things that have been challenging for them, that authenticity and transparency, I think is really necessary in a small group like this. If you're somebody who already has all the answers and been there, done that, or I already tried that and it didn't work, if that's your attitude, then the mastermind just isn't the right fit. But if you're open minded and want to learn and share the things that have worked really well for you, then you probably are a great fit.
I love it, Dr. Jim. Well, Doc, thank you so much for bringing the heat today. I mean, this has been amazing. If you're listening and you're a practice owner who wants to unlock growth through education or the magic of accountability or hands-on mentorship, then you need to check out the Foundation Dental Mastermind run by Dr. Jim. Dr. Jim also hosts luxury dental retreats. I believe you have two coming up next year in May and September because the demand has just been really amazing. We'll drop the info in our show notes as to how you can get involved with any of those. And as always, if you want culture and systems that really show up in the bottom line, TeamCare is here to help. Also, I would be remiss not to mention that we have a special offer with Dr. Jim, which we will also include in the show notes, where you can get 25% off lifetime and your first month free with TeamCare. Dr. Jim, thank you so much for the partnership. Thank you so much for joining the pod. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Great chatting with you guys always. Have a great afternoon and look forward to the next conversation.
Awesome, Dr. Jim. Thanks so much. And for people out there, go get a mentor, go to Dubai, go with Dr. Jim. For everyone out there, I think that's made it. That is a 100% common theme. Nobody did it alone. So super cool for you to share your story. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you for listening to The Extraction with Colin Ambler and Kyle Bergman. Read episode notes and transcripts at teamcaredental.com.